Today I was going to talk about getting ready for our seed starting season. So I get a lot of the questions of how do you start your seeds? Where do you start your seeds? What do you use to start your seeds? Well, I'm just going to tell you today about basically how to set up a seed starting rack so you can get going. Because I know we're all getting those seed catalogs. We're all getting excited. I know I've placed several orders and I'm just really wanting to get going. Some really cool varieties this year are out. So we're going to get ready for starting seeds. What is one of the first things you need is some type of rack or some type of support, a sturdy surface. So, I'm not telling you can't do it on your kitchen table because you can. I did it for many years. But what I like is to get a heavier, sturdier stand that I can actually hang little chains from and hang my lights. So it can be a wire rack, a baker's rack, sawhorses, pallets, tables, anything you want. But the big thing is that it has to be solid and it has to be able to hold the weight of the trays if you're going to have much soil on them. So then we need to also take a look at lights. Now, I will tell you for years and years, I have always leaned on the fluorescents because you can still get a pretty cheap or even a used ballast, a shop light that is pretty economical, and then you can get new bulbs to go in it. I will tell you that as long as you start out with new fluorescent bulbs, they will be just fine for seed starting. You do not have to graduate to LEDs. Now, I will tell you that I have invested in the LEDs. I'm having to relearn how to grow because those lights grow very differently than a fluorescent bulb. And so instead of having a fluorescent only 2 inches away from my seedlings, I've had to really learn a hard lesson that they have to be more like 10 inches away from my seedlings. And so I would do your homework and find out what kind of lights you want to use. There's pros and cons to both. Lots of different shapes, sizes, different configurations of lights. You have light strips like is in the top right hand picture. And then there are actual squares that will actually light a 2-foot square. And so just lots of different configurations. I really do advise suspending lights, and that way you can raise them up or lower them and be able to adjust them. Because like I said, if you're using a fluorescent light, it's going to be like that bottom picture where they're going to be down really close to the seedlings because you want as much light to get to it. But if you're going to be using LEDs, then you're going to be pulled up away from that light because the lights are a lot stronger. So lights are running, especially when we're talking about LEDs, you can get a 2-foot by 2-foot coverage or even a 2 by 4-foot coverage, depending on the dimensions of the light, for about $100. But if you're looking at lighting 3 or 4 shelves, that can really mount up on price. But if it's only one shelf for one light, then it's not so bad on that price. You can have a simple light stand. This is from University of Maryland Extension. All it is using PVC pipe to create a light stand, and then you can use string or chain to suspend that light. Pretty easy, economical, and easy to build. Definitely take a look at that because if you're wanting to start up and you haven't had something before, this is a good way to go if you don't want to use shelves. The other thing I want to address is bottom heat. You don't need bottom heat for everything, but some things it's a bonus. For example, peppers that you don't have bottom heat on, it's going to take you more than 21 days to get those little guys up out of the ground. But if you have bottom heat, you can get them up between 7 and 14 days. So if you're really looking at the time and you're running behind, heat mats do make a difference. Tomatoes will be up in 5 to 7 days. But as far as things like cole crops, the broccoli, the cabbage, the cauliflower, you do not need any warmth underneath because they're a cool season crop and they'll come up regardless. Now, if you're doing a lot of flowers, I would suggest probably the heat mat. You can also invest in heat cables, but that is being placed under soil or under a barrier between the seeds and the trays. Just keep that in mind. I really like the heat mats. They're going to run you anywhere between $40 to $100, depending on the size that you want. I do know I have a lot of master gardeners that will tell me I don't use heat mats. I actually put them on top of the refrigerator. And the thought behind that is your refrigerator puts out a lot of heat off the top, and that it's enough to germinate seedlings. So, I've always thought of what it would look like to have the seed trays on top of the refrigerator and a light system. So I've always chuckled, but I like my way the best, but everybody's different, and whatever works for you is I always tell people keep doing it that way. I will tell you, if you're on a budget crunch, heat mat might not be what you need because they do run pretty pricey. You need waterproof trays, and this way you don't have water going everywhere. I like to get trays without holes. They are a little pricier, but they do make it nice to where it catches all that moisture. I have now invested in the bigger trays to fit on my shelf. That is the middle tray. And so it is 36 inches wide and about 24 inches deep. And so they make it nice to where you can flood those trays and allow those plants to take up that water. Makes it real nice. You can also get boot trays that you can get from department stores. I believe the one in the picture, I believe I bought it from IKEA, but it will actually hold one of those 10-20 trays without holes. You can come up with all sorts of different things to keep the mess at bay. And I also have been investing in washer pans or hot water heater pans that you put under that to catch any leaks that might happen. So you can do a number of different things to keep any water leaks from happening. But they also are great when you need to be watering and you need to hold that water for a certain amount of time while those little seedlings suck it up from the bottom of the container. You can water over the top, but you don't necessarily need to. So putting it all together, basically you need some type of support for the trays, the light, something to hold the light, and then heat mats, and then a way to water. That pretty much gets you started. And the big thing is start early, start now putting it together. Start small. If it's not something you're going to do a lot of, just test it out. Trial and error is always a good thing. And then start simple. Don't invest too much. This is not something that you need to spend $1,000 on. $100, that should be your target. And make sure to sanitize anything you're using. A 10% bleach solution is what we recommend. And there are other non-bleach alternatives out there like Physan and Green Shield that work just fine. And then maybe, hopefully, you'll have a fun time starting seeds once you have your seed starting system set up.